The Steelers finished their preseason with a win over the Detroit Lions 19-9. But who cares about the win? We need to talk about how the offense looked because there were some good moments, some questionable moments, and from different players. We'll hear from Kenny Pickett, Najee Harris, and we'll also hear from the defense, also some injury talk as some guys came out with some bumps and bruises. I'm Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, breaking it down for you to start your week here. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things to the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button on this video if you enjoyed. Hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content whenever we get time to roll some out. Today's episode is brought to you by Brightco Jewelry and Watch Insurance. Brightco brings you comprehensive, fast, and affordable jewelry insurance for as low as $5 per month. Check out your special offer for Locked On listeners and get covered in under 2 minutes at bright.co/locked on. That's bright.co/locked on. Y'all, let's get into it because this was an interesting preseason game. We got to see a lot of Mitch. Mitch Trubisky played the entire first half. He finished the game 15 of 19 for 160 yards and a touchdown, was sacked twice. But ultimately, I thought he did pretty well for himself. Had some really nice deep passes down the sideline, fitting it into guys, into tight coverage. I thought he handled himself well, showed basically he's the starting quarterback. And Mike Tomlin showed he's the starting quarterback. And this is what I've been telling y'all. A lot of people didn't want to believe me. And again, it's not because I don't like Kenny. I covered Kenny in college. I like talking to Kenny. I think he's going to be a franchise quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the future. But right now, Mitch Trubisky's the starting quarterback. I tried to tell y'all that. Some people didn't want to believe me, but you saw how them snaps worked in the last preseason game. But again, I thought Mitch Trubisky handled himself well. Granted, the offense stalled a bit when they got in the red zone. The Steelers came away with, I think, 3 straight field goal possessions, and then was able to get a nice 2-minute drill in, and the 2-minute drill worked. They got moving, and they were able to connect. They were able to find some good open options. You saw him start to go through his reads well. I think that was a good sign that the Steelers offense, it has that potential of the playmakers on it. And here was Najee Harris, who he played in his first preseason action. Here was Najee Harris talking about what was working when they got the 2-minute drill going.
For you guys in the 2-minute drill, that you guys just seem to count rhythm.
Yeah, I think us going fastball, and then us really getting in the rhythm of I guess just going fast.
The last preseason.
So we're going to hear more from Najee Harris later, but when he was talking about getting in the rhythm, you saw when that happened, when the thinking was out of the way, these guys were able to connect with each other. And I think that was a big point of emphasis for the Steelers to finally punch one through in this game, and they did. And not that they haven't done in previous games, but Mitch Trubisky's offense hadn't scored a touchdown since the first preseason game. So I think Mike Tomlin did want to see it. They were happy to see that there were connections being made. Steven Sims had caught a 6-yard slant. I thought that was pretty solid. Diontae Johnson caught a deep ball. Pat Freiermuth was caught one up the middle of the part of the field. There were some really good passes from Mitch Trubisky in this game. I thought he acquitted himself well. I'm not saying that he's going to be a superstar this year. He's going to the Pro Bowl, but I think that he's a solid quarterback option for the Steelers, albeit there are some things you need to clean up. I think there's times his progressions could be a little bit better. But working with that offensive line, I think it's remarkable that he finished 15 of 19 for 160 yards in a touchdown pass. But Kenny Pickett, I thought he didn't have his best day. This was probably the worst you've seen of Kenny Pickett in a preseason game, but here's the worst you've seen of Kenny Pickett in a preseason game. 10 of 14 for 90 yards. I mean, are you really mad at him? He didn't throw a touchdown. He didn't lead a touchdown drive, sure, but how much of that was on, just the team around him and the situation? I thought he handled himself well. He was decisive. He had one pass to Gunnar Olszewski in the end zone that was just a really good breakup, but it was a greatly thrown pass on the run, a little bit of a scramble drill, and he put it in the right spot where Gunnar Olszewski was either going to bring it down or this guy was going to make an amazing tip to knock the pass away. I thought Kenny Pickett handled himself well, and we got a chance to catch up with him in the locker room. Here's Kenny Pickett talking about how he feels about himself and the progress that he's made and the offense has made going forward. I thought he also threw some great back shoulder passes. I asked him specifically about that. Here's Kenny Pickett in the locker room after the Steelers preseason win.
This was going to be the week for getting to decide things. How did you feel you went in your final preseason reps?
Yeah, that went really well. Take the shots that we had when they were there and just kind of take what the defense gave us as I was in there, and we were moving the ball well. Obviously, want to score touchdowns there, so that's something we got to look at.
You looked like you were completing a lot of back shoulder throws in rhythm. What's that been like developing that kind of chemistry with several different receivers?
Yeah. I mean, the guys are doing a good job. I mean, they're running to win, and the DB's on top. It's my job to throw them open and throw the back shoulder ball. So that was something we did really well. Wish I hit that one inside fade to Ty and the one outside fade to the other Ty. So the things we got to work on. Obviously not going to be perfect. But.
After your final drive, I saw it looked like you and Mitch were sitting down for a while, like talking to someone on a headset. What kind of things was he going over with you after you finished?
We're just both bouncing ideas off each other. What we saw when we were out there, what we did was working. So when Mason's in there, we can relay the same stuff. But we have a great relationship. The whole quarterback room as a whole. We have a great relationship where we can talk out ideas and what we see, what we don't like. So I think it was a really good preseason for us.
For you, Kenny, individually, if you want to speak to it as the whole, where did you feel like the offense made the most progress, and where do you wish you had another game or two to work out the kinks?
Just the continuity. I mean, you want to have as much time together as you possibly can. Obviously, I'm pretty new here. A lot of the guys are new, so we don't have that time. We're throwing a lot of routes on air, and where I was at, earlier in the preseason where now I wasn't getting as much reps. So you always just want more reps. So that's the key. The game experience I got in preseason was awesome, but just more time playing together is all you want.
As I've told you guys a lot of this show, Kenny Pickett is a very focused individual he's just day to day. He focuses on every daily task, keeping himself motivated by just winning each day. He's not looking too far ahead. He's not looking behind. He's just on what's in front of him. And you hear that just from, hey, we're trying to get that continuity. We're trying to get that down. And that humbleness, I think, that you get from him. But I think there's a really good situation the Steelers have on their hands where, yes, I think Mitch Trubisky is the starting quarterback. I've said that for months on this show, but I don't think that they're in a bad spot if Mitch Trubisky ever goes down and they need Kenny Pickett to start in. I think it's also clear he is the number 2 quarterback. You saw how many more snaps he got than Mason Rudolph in that game. But look at these preseason numbers, or listen to these preseason numbers, for our audio listeners thinking I'm going to just show them. But Kenny Pickett, total preseason numbers, 29 of 36 for 261 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's 7.25 yards per pass, or yards per attempt, and a passer rating of about 124.65. Mitch Trubisky, 24 of 34 for 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 8.3 yards per pass, passer rating 115.2. I mean, those are really good numbers from your top 2 guys. And Mason Rudolph also had good numbers, all of them. Passer ratings in the hundreds. This is not saying that these guys are going to just be lightening up the league all season long. Preseason is very different from regular season. But this is to say that's competent quarterback play and what you asked for. And if you're thinking, well, Chris, what does that matter because it is the preseason? Think back to all the times that Landry Jones and all the other quarterbacks that the Steelers used to roll out in the preseason and how poorly they look. That's not the case right now. These guys, no Steelers quarterback threw an interception in all of preseason football. I think that says a lot about this group. They're competent. They got good weapons. They get the ball around. There is something going good for the Steelers here. And I think that it's good for Steelers fans to take a sigh of relief and think, hey, your quarterback situation is not going to stink. It may not be the best. It probably won't be the best, especially in the division with Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and who knows what's going on with Deshaun Watson. But those two especially, I think, Jackson and Burrow are going to be tough. But these quarterbacks are going to be competitive. And I think that's the biggest thing you could take away from this, that the passing offense does have a lot of things going for it, timing-wise. And I think it's cool that Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, I'm telling you, I was sitting there with my binoculars in the press box looking like, oh, snap. These guys is just sitting together for like 15 minutes, just going, and they were just going back and forth. You could tell they were conversing and they were looking over things. I think these guys, they like each other. They're willing to help each other. And the same thing goes for Mason Rudolph. I don't mean to exclude him. He was just warming up his arm at the time. But these guys, they like working together. They like growing together. I think that's a very good sign that the Steelers offense does have something going for it good in the quarterback room. It may not be the final product right now because we still got to see how these guys grow as a group. But I think there's some good things going for them. Now, the good things that aren't going for the offense is the offensive line. We'll get to them. Also, talk about some injury situations because Najee Harris revealed something to us in the locker room about his injury situation, his past injury situation, and where he's been. We'll talk about TJ Watt, Diontae Johnson, and Damontae Kazee, who also got hurt. And we'll talk about the offensive line in just a second here. But first, we got to talk to you guys about Brightco. Brightco is a jewelry insurance company that will make sure you get a replacement for the full value of an engagement ring, an expensive watch, or any jewelry, whether it's lost, stolen, or you just can't figure out what happened to it. If you've ever been on a YouTube dive for random fail videos, you've probably seen some guys drop their engagement ring right as they're about to propose, and it falls off a boat, off a helicopter, down a sewer, or they lose it in some ridiculous way and be out of thousands of dollars while also being humiliated on the internet. Well, Brightco can't help with the internet part, but they're here to help you get back your hard-earned money that you spent on that ring. Go to bright.co forward slash locked on. Again, that's bright.co / locked on to see some of the insane videos that I was talking about and learn how you can get insurance as cheap as $5 on expensive jewelry. Again, that's bright.co / locked on. We're also brought to you by Turo. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the U.S., Canada, or the U.K. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. Get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from A to B. Test drive that new electric vehicle you had your eye on to see how it fits in your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms and conditions and exclusions apply. Ditch the boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. And as y'all know, when we do back-to-back ad reads, we keep it rolling here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. So, okay, before I get to the offensive line, let's talk about the injury situation. One, it did appear that TJ Watt had a knee injury that came off of when TJ Hawkinson cut blocked him, and he went under the blue tent, kind of disappeared for a little bit, came back out, didn't play for the rest of the thing. Diontae Johnson caught a deep pass, landed on his shoulder a little funny. They said he had a shoulder injury. He came out, didn't play again. Those two guys, when Mike Tomlin was asked about them at halftime and said that they'd be back in the game if this was a regular season game, but it's a preseason game and they didn't need that. Damontae Kazee, however, fell on his wrist a little funny, didn't look good. He was in a sling afterwards. That was a little nervous. I don't think he would have been back, and I wonder how much time he's going to miss for his injury. But I bring all these up, and one thing I was like, hey, yeah, okay, it would have been cool if if the Steelers didn't have these preseason injuries. But I saw these people saying, why are these guys playing at all? You don't need to see TJ Watt. You don't need to see Diontae Johnson. You know who they are in the preseason. I don't think that y'all know what they're trying to do in that situation. It's not just trying to see how they look, because you know how they look. But it's about getting in football shape. And that's something, actually, if you're a longtime listener of the Locked On Steelers podcast, a couple years back, even more than a couple years back, I think we had Ike Taylor on this show, two-time Super Bowl champion, former Steelers cornerback. And I asked him, it was 2 years ago because it was heading into the pandemic season of 2020. And he expressed concern. He said, if these guys don't hit enough in preseason and in training camp, there's going to be a lot of injuries, because one of the biggest things that you have to do every year as an NFL athlete is hit and hit and hit and get used to cooling down from hitting and then hit and hit again. And that stuff, it helps you during the season as you're going week to week and prevents injuries later in the season. So it wasn't just purely about, the Steelers wanted to see TJ Watt, and if he still had it. No, it was about saying, hey, you need to get TJ Watt those reps. You need to be able to see him get active on the field, because you need him to hit a quarterback, hit offensive linemen, get that kind of feel back into him. It's about conditioning your body for those moments. So that is a real football thing. That's not me making things up. I know football guys. Arthur Moats would say the same thing. Other Chris Hoke, if you've ever listened to him, any football player would tell you that's part of the game. So people are saying the Steelers are stupid for letting their guys practice or play in this preseason game. You don't know what you're talking about. They're trying to get these guys some reps to build up for the season. And this is football. Injuries are going to happen. If they happen in the regular season, you'd still be mad at them, wouldn't you? Exactly. Now, one thing that we did know about what we did learn was Najee Harris talking about his injury. He informed us it wasn't a foot getting stepped on that made him miss camp, and he did miss a lot of camp, most of camp even. He had a Liz Frank sprain injury. Here was him explaining that and also talking about his rust in this game. Najee Harris, not the best day out there, 4 carries, 10 yards, but he didn't attribute to the offensive line, which didn't have their best day either. He attributed it to himself. Here's Najee Harris in the locker room.
What did it feel like getting your first action out there in preseason this year?
Yeah, man, it was good to get back out there. Kind of rusty a little bit, I would say. I've been down for about 4 weeks. Just to give everybody an update, I never did just get my foot stepped on. I had a sprain Liz Frank. So that's why I was out for the majority of the camp. So to get back in there in the motions of stuff like that, I felt really rusty. I wasn't too happy about my performance. Bad read on one run. I would say the false start. And then there was I missed something else. Oh, I went the wrong. I had MA on one play. But it's good that this is preseason right now. Watch the film and just get better at it.
How'd it feel working with Mitch?
It was good, man.
How did your foot feel? Liz Frank?
It felt good. Yeah, it felt good. I sprained it, so it's about 6 weeks or 4 to 6 weeks. I think it's been about 4 weeks, so 4 to 5 weeks. So just now getting over it, but just getting back into motion. Just rested today. It wasn't a good performance. Nothing I should be proud about either. But just need to get better.
How do you shake off the rust then from now to first game?
Getting live action like this, because I did not get live action in practice. They told me before even the camp, they said that you're only gonna have 1 day of live and then that's it. So that could be a good thing, obviously, but also a bad thing. Just stuff like this, it's gonna be the first time, and then me being out and not really getting to feel my old line of how things are gonna be, runs and stuff like that hit. Just me personally just do better at that. So. This type of stuff, falls on me, responsibility of just getting the mesh with the online and stuff.
Do you feel like this offense is close or getting close to being where you want to be heading into the first game?
I think we're getting there. I think that we're going forward. Is it where we're going to be at though? No, but are we working there yet? And all that matters is us being ready on September 11th against the Bengals.
Now, I first want to credit Najee Harris for taking the interview. I kind of walked up on him, and it didn't occur to me what he was doing at the time. He was looking at his phone. I think he was learning about the unfortunate situation where Brian Robinson Jr., the Washington Commanders running back, was carjacked and shot twice during a carjacking. And it turns out he's stable and in the hospital. It seems like he's not in any life-threatening situation. But for those who don't know, Brian Robinson Jr. was Najee Harris's backup at Alabama. So that was probably very distressing to him. And I saw Mr. Rudy talking to him in the locker room. Prayers out to Brian Robinson. Hope that not only will he have a full recovery health-wise, he'll be able to get to doing everything he wants to his career. I can't imagine what was going through Najee Harris's brain, but again, I commend him for taking our questions and being candid about himself and how he needs to be better. Who knows how anyone would handle that situation when you heard your friend, is laying up in a hospital and shot, and you don't know how they're doing, and you're here answering questions and being honest, like, hey, I didn't do my best today. So again, a lot of points and kudos to Najee Harris for his mental space and how he handles things. But he's right. There were mistakes in his situation. I thought he had a couple good pass blitz pickups, But I also, and there were some couple runs that I thought he did really well that got called Burke, but there were some plays where he did miss the hole. But I think it's very important that he's seeing these things. And again, while all this other stuff is going on and things that are really tragic and and are real life problems that he's got to be thinking about in the moment, he's sitting there talking to us about all this and about hey, I got to do this better, I got to do that better, I got to go look at the film. That's again why I've been very high on Najee Harris. It's not just about production; it's about him as a human being and him as a leader. I think he's going to figure those things out and get there. But I do got to say the offensive line. That's where a lot of the troubles came from. They gave up 2 sacks on Mitch Trubisky in this game. And unfortunately, that was the only sack that they gave up in the game officially. But they also had several offensive penalties in one of their red zone trips. There were 3 offensive line penalties. I think a false start. No, not a false start. No, it was 1 false start and like 2 holding penalties that brought it back. Kevin Dotson and Dan Moore Jr. were getting beat. It was not looking great. Now, I will say James Daniels looked better in this game. I thought Mason Cole looked a little better in this game. But still, there's a lot of questions about that offensive line. No, and I will say Kevin Dotson looked better than Kendrick Green did. But man, And actually, I'll say this, just in a live run through. I haven't had a chance to rewatch this game. I'm in WPXI studios right now, getting ready to shoot the final word, which will be aired at 11:35 p.m. Eastern Sunday night. So literally about to do that. But I did want to go over this because I did think the offensive line, struggled at times. I will say Kevin Dotson, I didn't notice him getting beat too much, but it wasn't enough push from this offensive line in this game. Now, the Steelers did run the ball a little bit here and there. I thought there was a good run or two by Jalen Warren, Benny Snell, but it wasn't consistent. And that's what Najee Harris is talking about. They need to find that consistency. And I know that he won't ever name the offensive line or say this guy or that guy. He's talking about him and himself. That's just how he carries himself. That's how Kenny Pickett carries himself. That's how these guys operate. But I do think that there is a bit of, hey, someone's got to show up and be ready because this offense has to look better than it did in this game if they want to go forward. Field goals and 1 2-minute drill touchdown, that worked in the preseason game, and there will be games where your defense will win it for you like that, but they can't be all the time. So we'll see how this offense grows, and we'll do some more film analysis for tomorrow's episode, the Tuesday episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast that comes out, so I can give you guys more direct analysis on stuff that I saw on tape. But we got to talk about the defense too, because there were some upsides for the defense. I thought they actually played collectively a good game, even though you look at the numbers and you're thinking, wow, they really gave up that many yards on the ground. A lot of that came after a lot of the starters were being rotated out, but there were still some really good plays by key guys that you've been waiting to see good plays from. We'll get to that in just a minute here. But first, we got to talk to you guys about our people at Prize Picks. Now, Prize Picks is the fun new daily fantasy game that everyone needs to start playing right now. If you're big into fantasy sports, this is a way to get your daily fix by selecting individual projections and making a simple decision whether they'll get more or less of a set number of yards, touchdowns, and other key fantasy stats. And it's easy to use. You simply pick 2 to 5 players that you think you have a beat on for their day in fantasy. Choose whether they'll get more or less of those certain stats, and make as many entries in Prize Picks as you want. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. You're not competing against others. It's just about guessing right on more or less picks. Prize Picks includes NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, college sports, and so much more. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive up to 100% instant deposit matchup up to $100 with a promo code Locked On. That's promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100 in Prize Picks, they will give you $100 on top of that. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will also give you $50. Don't forget to enter that promo code Locked On. That's LOCKEDON. At sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100 at prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm Chris Carter. We're filming here at WPXI's one of their offices. I thank them for letting me use this while I get set up for final word. But I want to finish talking about the defense because we talked a lot about the offense and whether they're ready. There's still a lot of work they got to do. They got to get consistency in. I saw some good steps for the defense, though. The only touchdown they gave up was the third-team defense late. But I especially saw some good coordination from the linebackers, who we've been talking a lot about. And Miles Jack was very candid about the situation. I think he said some really good things. Devin Bush and him teamed up for a 4th down stop that he even said that was more about Devin Bush than me. It was great to just that we both met at the same place, and he was there. So here's Miles Jack talking about what he's got, how he's improved, the linebackers have improved, and what he's seen out of Devin Bush and how he's taken his criticism from coaches and other players. Here's Miles Jack.
What kind of progress have you seen from you guys as a linebacker group as a whole? Not just yourself, but communicating.
Yeah, I think that was it was a lot of things we improved on, but I think guys are playing fast, guys are playing physical. That was one thing we wanted to do, and just communicate, make sure everybody knows what they're doing from the D-line to the secondary. So I feel like we improved in a lot of aspects, but now it's time for the real ball.
Saw you and Devin Bush get in the backfield on that 4th down.
Yeah.
What was it like for him? It seemed like he really felt that moment.
Yeah.
He's been trying to get back to where he is. What did you see from him, and what did you say to him?
I felt like for me and him both, that was like a cool moment that we both get there at the same time and make that stop. But that was his tackle. He made that tackle, and that was a big play, man. We was just like 4th and 1. Before the game, we was like, look, they're going to try to run the ball. So once we see a potential run look that we've studied, we're going downhill no matter what. And that's what we both did, and we met at the same time. So it was really cool that you talk about it and then you actually go out there and do it.
What you really challenged by Flo, and a lot of guys have tried to push him. How have you seen him respond to those challenges, and where do you see him now compared to when he was getting pushed like that?
Man, he's a guy that just wants to know what he's doing. You know what I mean? He just wants to play, make plays, and play fast. So as long as we all know what we're doing, and same with myself, as long as I know what I'm doing, we can play fast. And you saw it tonight, man. He was flying around doing his thing.
Young 93 picking us up.
Yeah. Mark Rao, that's my guy, man. He's playing fast. He's always hitting something. It's fun to watch him play, man, because he's just running around. He's learning the defense really fast, and as a rookie, I feel like he's progressing very, very fast.
So I think lots of good notes there. One, Devin Bush was more active in this game. There was one play on 3rd and 17 that he got blocked, didn't come off his block, and he gave up. There was a big run that ran right past him. It was a draw, but still not a good look for him at all in that situation. But that 4th down, he was downhill, aggressive, got back in the backfield, brought his man down. Miles Jack came with him. Good play for him. He finished the game with 2 tackles total. Not a whole lot, but I did see him looking more confident there. And I think it's one of those things that might be a breakthrough play for him where he starts to figure things out and say, aha, I could do this again. That was a good sign for him. Miles Jack, though, doesn't need no breakthrough. He has broken through. I think that he plays very well. He plays fast. He's strong. He covers well. He's understanding the run game. He's getting off his blocks. I think he also does very well. He also had 2 total tackles in this game. One of them was an assist on the 4th down stop that they had. Also, I think that in general, the linebackers overall played well. Mark Robinson was flying around, made a really good special teams tackle. Buddy Johnson had a really good breakup in the red zone where it was a Texas route from the running back. He identified it, cut it off, got in front of the pass, knocked it down. It was a big 3rd down stop that led to a 4th down stop by the defense in that situation. All in all, I think the defense was coming along. I think the biggest problems came when that second tier of defensive linemen came in, and you saw them start to get gashed more and more in the run game. But when that first group was in, the lines had negative 2 yards on the ground when like Cam Hayward and Larry Ogunjobi were in there and TJ Watt. Alex Highsmith still wasn't back, but I thought Hamilcar Rashed was able to play a little bit there. I thought there was some boost there. Delonte Scott also had a good sack. I thought he played well. DeMarvin Leal, I keep telling you guys, I think that he is the next big defensive lineman that gets developed into a major player for the Steelers. Maybe won't be that big name player this year, but I'm seeing the makings of a guy who could turn into a stud at the defensive line position on the interior for the Steelers moving forward. But still lots of questions to happen there. Cam Sutton had a good interception. You see some things working out there. I think this defense is putting it together, but it's not there just yet to be that elite group. I still think there's things they got to cross. We'll look more at the film and go over this more for the Tuesday episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast. Thanks so much for checking us out here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Also, read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette where I cover Pitt athletics. Also, you can check out this show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. Download if you like downloading videos on YouTube, if you like watching videos on YouTube, like this video. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to our YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday content. And if you enjoyed us even more, go on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review with a positive comment. Doing so gets you a shout out at the end of the show. Thanks again to everybody. I'll be back on your screens and in your ears tomorrow with more on your Pittsburgh Steelers.